68th Constitutional Day. Without any delay, I request all the speakers to join me on the stage. For the agenda for the particular session is getting future ready, deliberating policy landscape of artificial intelligence in India. We have among us the session moderator, Mr. Tabrez Ahmad, who is the Director of Government Affairs at eBay India. Mr. Tabrez Ahmad is Director Corporate Affairs of eBay India and Flipkart. He has over 20 years of experience in legal practice, marketing, public policy, and macroeconomy to bring upswings in business through policy intervention. Next, we have Mr. Kazim Rizvi, founder of Dialogue. Mr. Kazim Rizvi is a public policy and communication professional with more than 5 years of experience in research, communication, and program management. Next, we have Mr. Avik Sarkar, OSD Data Analytics, NITI Aayog. Dr. Avik Sarkar is an officer on special duty OSD at NITI Aayog. He is also the in charge of data analytics cell at NITI Aayog. Next, we have among us Mr. Ashutosh Chadha, who is the Group Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Microsoft India. He has nearly 30 years of national and international experience in corporate and government affairs, policy advocacy, channel management, and strategic planning. Next, we have among us Mr. Suhan Mukherjee, who is the partner at PLR Chambers. Mr. Suhan Mukherjee is the founding partner at PLR Chambers and one of the most public policy and regulatory affairs lawyers in India. So beginning with the session, I would like to call upon the stage Mr. Tabrez Ahmad to start with the session. Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Tabrez. I'm so happy to moderate this session. With me, my co-chair, Kazim. He has done excellent work, so I depend on him a lot. Thank you, Kazim, for doing excellent work in public policy. This year, when we were thinking of what should be the topic, we thought artificial intelligence and the impact of artificial intelligence should be the topic. It's really disruptive tech development in the world. It's inevitable. So naturally, we thought this is the topic. There are a lot of, I find, miscommunication around artificial intelligence, and we have people who will talk about what it means. We have a government representative. We will be all looking from you, sir. But just to set the context a bit, and then I will pass it to Kazim to talk more in detail. On the one side, we see artificial intelligence really benefiting society in a way which has never we have seen before, whether it's medical technology, where they are much improved performance in terms of diagnosis, recommending the treatment. At the same time, it is very disruptive in terms of losing job. It can create net loss of job. We have seen people really saying that this is the in thing, this is what will transform the mankind. On the other side, we have Elon Musk saying it's calling the demon, Bill Gates having his own reservation. So what is it and how India will grapple with it, how India will adopt it, how India will adjust it, and then looking at different sectors, be it autonomous car, what will impact? It will have impact on drivers. What will, in case of lawyers, as all of us are lawyers, I'm also a lawyer, I'm also worried that by the time I will retire, will there be private practice left for me or not? Because most of the time, we hear that supercomputer like Watson can do most of the lawyer's job. Be it editors, it can create articles in jiffy and very factually correct. It can have its own analytics. It can have its own forecast. Whatever an editor does, artificial intelligence can do. What impact it will have on restaurant where there are a large number of people who are in hospitality industry, serving people, those jobs will be gone. In factories. So these are the impacts. At the same time, I find any country, any society which doesn't adopt it and lose out, what will be the impact on them? So all these questions are there in my mind, which is also in your mind. I'm not going to give any solution, any answer, because I have experts who will talk about it. So I will just stop here, and then I will start inviting. So Kazim, I will invite you to talk about it. You can do it here, you can do it there. But then at the end, I will ask some question, and I'm sure you all have questions. So I would really like that after we have spoken, it should be interactive, okay? So we will really invite questions. So please jot down your question. I'm jotting my question. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Tabrez. All right. Am I audible? Great. So thank you so much, Tabrez, for having us here and for giving me the opportunity to lead this and take this forward. And we sort of discussed and deliberated over a discourse as to what we should talk about for this year's annual conference on public policy. And artificial intelligence seems to be the most important area of research and as well as a tool to drive policy change through the use of technology. So before I move on to talking about what are the current challenges and opportunities from a public policy perspective, I would like to know from people over here, how many of you use Siri on your iPhones or Google Hello? If I can just have a raise of hands, show of hands. Okay, I'm sure there are more people. I use Siri as well. Anybody from the panel using Siri as well? Okay. How many of us are dependent on Google Maps for day-to-day commute transportation? Okay, that's, I think, nearly 90%. All right. And how many of us are victims of lots of emails and spams and marketing emails on our SMSs and on our Gmails? Okay, that's again quite a good show of strength over there. So why did I do this exercise? The idea has been, can you just get this mic a little bent a lot? Yeah, okay. So the idea was to sort of understand and give you all a perspective of the fact that AI and automation is already in our lives. It's already making an impact. And whether we like it or not, it's here to stay. And it's going to take a surge and a leap forward in the days to come. So with that context, with that perspective, I believe it's very important for the government and the policymakers and the research communities and technology experts, as well as the citizens, to embrace AI and to sort of explore ways through which we can best use this technology without going into the wrong hands. So as I start, I would also like to sort of give you an overview of how do we define AI. Very simply, it's a machine which mimics cognitive functions of humans towards problem solving and learning. Its capability to imitate intelligent human behavior and simulate human behavior to solve complex challenges. And that's what is a general layman's definition of AI. And in 2017, what we are witnessing now is that AI is being used to understand human speech. It's used to compete at strategic games. It's being used in military, in defense sectors for simulations. It's being used to interpret extremely complex data. And it's also being used to route content delivery networks, and that's why you have all those emails in your inboxes. So AI-based applications are already touching our lives, and we see it more and more happening as we move forward. The idea is to see how best we can use this technology to drive development and in terms of policy change. Now, since the dawn of the new government, we've seen quite a new program such as Make in India, Skill India, Startup India, Digital India. And AI is going to impact all these programs. In fact, AI is going to impact all different sectors, such as healthcare, sanitation, gender, legal as well, as Tabrez rightly put out, and many other sectors, Make in India as well, manufacturing. So how can we best have a policy or a roadmap in India so that we can best use and best understand the opportunities and also mitigate the challenges? So as I sort of look upon what are the challenges and opportunities, we'll first look at broadly what exactly are some of the areas where AI can already make a difference. Now, when we look at challenges of AI and how best we can drive AI in India, one of the biggest challenges we see right now is the lack of data infrastructure, or I would say cloud computing infrastructure in India. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft here, they are doing already great work in terms of setting up data infrastructure here. But I believe that going forward, in order to embrace it more and embrace it better, it's important that we have a more coherent strategy where we can ensure physical data infrastructures set up in India, and that can propel the technological development and research of AI. Second point towards this is also understanding a cultural initiative. India has traditionally been a country which has been slow to change. And that reflects in the way we work as well and the way we sort of bring about. But I think there is a time and now we see more and more flexibility to change. And I think that needs to be reflected in the way we are embracing AI. I believe there's a cultural shift which is required to allow this technology to work with us and also to sort of get over the fears we have of AI. Of course, I'll list out a few, and they are something which we need to address. But I think culturally speaking, we sort of need to embrace this technology and understand the value add which this technology is going to give us. The third area where I feel we have a few challenges right now is in the research and development field. Unfortunately, there isn't enough public spending or research on AI. I think Dr. Sarkar would be better suited to give an opinion on that. But traditionally, as we have seen before also in other countries as well, private sector has always taken a leap in terms of research. And it's the same as for India, as it is for China and US and UK and other European countries. But the difference is that over there, we are now seeing a surge and more public spending, and governments are now coming into foray and understanding the viability of AI, not just in defense, but even in terms of development and overall growth of the country. And I believe that in India, we have enough scope and potential, and I think it's high time that we looked at increasing our research and development in AI to sort of, again, allow it to prosper as we move forward. Now, post-research, my next area where I believe there are a lot of challenges and where I think most of us are also aware of are jobs. And as you may be reading in newspapers or in journals, it's said that AI is going to threaten a lot of jobs, which is true, especially for medium-skilled jobs like clerical jobs or assembly line workers. They'll be the most hit. But at the same time, the way we are scaling ourselves and the way our people are now going out and the way private sector is now inviting new skill set, I believe that instead of calling it a job disruption, what we are witnessing is job dislocation or relocation of jobs in the way that old set of skills are now becoming obsolete and there are new skills which are now important for professionals to adapt and to move forward in an AI-enabled world. Now, if this is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. There are experts over here who can enlighten us more on that. But the fact is that we are witnessing a change in the way professional skill set are being required to deliver jobs and to deliver tasks in India. And I think with an AI-enabled world, the answer to this challenge is to be aware and to prepare in advance. And that's where the role of policymakers come into picture. Now, moving on, I would like to present a few areas where I believe that AI can make a significant impact, and it already is, and where I believe we need coherent policies to enable the growth of AI. Starting with the education sector, what we are seeing now is a change in the sequential system of education. Very soon, you'll witness that professionals graduating from universities, going into one sort of job and taking it forward, that will not be existing. That will sort of cease to exist. You'll require multiple skill set. You'll require multiple ways of delivering a task. And it won't be enough for a professional to sort of enroll in a center of education and then come out as a graduate and then continue forever. He will have to readapt, learn and learn again and again to sort of update himself or herself for the market. And I think that is where our education policy should have this in mind for the next education policy, whenever that comes out, to enable this real-time change in skills which is required to actually drive innovation. Because AI-enabled innovation happens at a very fast pace, and also the fact that the private sector will be demanding new types of skill set, and I'm sure Mr. Chadha can elaborate on those lines in terms of what are the new skill set which the industry demands, which were not present 5 years ago. But the fact that we are seeing technology coming into foray so fast that we require new different type of skill set and people's ability to learn those skills along with making sure that they work with artificial intelligence machines. Second is something which is very close to my heart, which is the Make in India program and the manufacturing sector. With AI, with automation, with IoT, cloud computing, we are seeing, again, a transformation in the way we produce goods. And it's already happening in Germany. It's already happening in US. They call it smart manufacturing. In Germany, they call it fourth industrial revolution. And India is not alien to this phenomena. It's already seeing a surge in the way Bosch and a few other companies have set up plants in India where you're seeing real-time feedback being implemented and products being produced with greater efficiency and cheaper cost. And that is where our manufacturing policy needs to reflect these technological advancements to ensure that we minimize job losses. At the same time, we improve the way we produce things and also maybe increase the number of jobs, maybe a different skill set of jobs, different types of jobs may be needed, but that again has to be reflected in the way we go about framing those policies. The third point I would like to point out is on Skilling India. Skill India program has been one of the most important programs to upscale the way we skill our professionals and the people in India. And I think that program and the policy around skilling needs to reflect the use of technology. And it needs to reflect a way where we can ensure that people have tools and they learn how to use those tools in order to be able to do well in her profession. Because skilling is one thing, but the ability to use the technology to drive innovation is crucial in this space. And also when we look at Digital India, it's very important in terms of how we position ourselves as a country where are we ready to look at heavy, complex data analytics and how are we able to sort of come out with ideas and how are we able to innovate products. And Dr. Sarkar over here is with NITI Aayog. He leads the data analytics division over there, and I'm sure he can bring about a few points on those aspects as well. So in terms of policy goals, I believe that these are the few areas where our policies should reflect AI, and we also should have a policy for AI and how to regulate AI. Maybe not now. I was having an offline discussion with Mr. Chadha that let's allow the technology to come out and sort of show its full face before we regulate it. But at the same time, we should be aware in terms of how that technology is being used and for what, and what are the benefits and what are the challenges. So we should be sort of on top of those areas as well. Now, in my final sort of segment, I would like to touch upon a few areas where AI can be used in public sector. Before that, I would like to give an example of China, which is using predictive policing to predict behavior of individuals who they believe could end up or are potential criminals or terrorists. And the use of predictive analysis in policing, be it military or be it any other sector, is a great game changer in the way we analyze and understand trends to prepare for future. And I believe that's a great opportunity, and I believe that we should sort of embrace that, move forward with it, and see how we can best use it in the Indian context. Now, we need to have a sort of AI-based technique where we can recognize patterns. We should also develop national language processes, capabilities to automate multilingual communications. And this is very important for a country like India, where we have, I think, 28 or 29, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figure of the number of languages spoken. But imagine if you have an AI system which can real-time convert the information into the language which you and I speak. And that can, again, have a transformation in the way we communicate about information. That can have a transformation in the way media communicates to people. So that is one area where we can look at. And also looking at AI-based softwares and skilling and AI-based education applications, which can teach people faster, which can develop their skills faster. And how can we sort of cumulatively bring those technologies together is, again, a challenge, yet an opportunity. And finally, I would like to end with the fact that although there are a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of challenges, but we should also be aware of the threats especially in terms of national security, and also ensuring that AI should not go into the wrong hands at any point of time. Well, that's true for any technology whenever it comes into picture. When internet came about, when we had mobile phones coming out, the fear was the same, that what will happen if it goes in the wrong hands? Well, of course, it can go in the wrong hands, but the idea is to make sure that we develop regulations and system and laws which are strict enough and fortify the importance of or the advantages of that technology, yet retaining it within the ecosystem of the country. And yes, of course, national security is important, and at the same time, using AI to benefit and to advance our own strategic affairs interest, and at the same time, create India as a superpower for the future and tilt the balance of power from China, because China has really surged ahead in terms of technology. They have a great AI system called Baidu. I don't know how many of you have heard of that, but please check it out. It's a game changer in the way it deals and it works. It's probably the best system out there in the world. Can we replicate that? Can we better that? I think I'll leave it to the speakers to elaborate more on it. So thank you so much for patient hearing.
Thanks, Kazim. I would request Ashutosh to talk about it. Globally, any company which has data and technical skill to make sense of data leads AI in the space of AI. Microsoft is one of them. So let's hear from Ashutosh.
All right, thanks, Tabrez. Let me just try to get this thing working. All right, it does seem to work. So, good afternoon, everyone. It's always interesting to speak to a room full of lawyers. I will hopefully raise some controversial things, and don't throw bricks at me for that. Why are we having this discussion? I think if you really go back in time, we've, like Kazim said, that we've had this discussion, when the internet came around, when the mobile phone came around. Thankfully, we didn't have this discussion when fire was discovered, or steam engine was discovered, or the internal combustible engine, or possibly when Graham Bell talked for the first time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are today. I think the reason why we are having this discussion is because we are at a cusp at this point of time in the interspace between technology, business, government, civil society, where technology is actually at the point where it has the capability and it will change everything that we do in the future. Organizations are changing. The way we interact with each other is changing. Our social lives are changing. Our interaction with government services are changing. Everything is changing. And there is just one word which is changing that: technology. The point that I'm going to try and talk about is that, what role does AI have? And I'm going to actually pivot my conversation around three areas. The fear that we have of AI, and it's good to be afraid, right? Because if you're not afraid, you won't prepare yourselves for it. The opportunities that AI throws in front of us to actually solve the large problems that as a planet we face today, not just as a nation. And then look at some of the fundamental principles that we need to look at when we are examining what should be the policy parameters or what should be the policy frameworks that we should use when we try and look at regulating technology. Just a data point, it's expected that by 2030, artificial intelligence is actually going to add another $15 trillion to global productivity. That's a huge amount of money. We can either be part of it or we can be not part of it. It depends upon us. What is artificial intelligence? And I think Tabrez also touched upon it, and Kazim did also. But one of the basic issues of what artificial intelligence is that it works on data sets. It works on data, massive amount of data, to make sense out of that, to enable us to do or make our lives better. And fundamentally, when you look at artificial intelligence, and I've called my topic AI for Good, when you look at artificial intelligence, it fundamentally it basically works when you add human ingenuity to technology, right? And if you look at any of the developments in the past, it's all because of human ingenuity. Fire wouldn't have been discovered if there wasn't human ingenuity. We wouldn't have the airplanes if somebody didn't have the bird-brained idea of trying to fly, right? We wouldn't be sailing the ships, or various countries wouldn't have got discovered if there were a couple of sailors who decided they wanted to travel for, God knows, 5 years, 6 years on the wild seas to look at places. It's all human ingenuity which has brought change to us. At the same time, there is a public perception, and a good public perception, that there is danger in front of us. Tabrez talked about it, Kazim talked about it, that we can lose jobs. You have people talking about that robots will take away will take over the world. And I just read an article by a psychologist, actually, which said that alien life, if and when we discover it, may actually be technological alien life and not life as we understand it today. But I think what we need to understand is that what AI can do to us is good and bad. There is the perception that it will take over our lives. There is the perception that it can make our lives riskier. It can destroy jobs. It can maybe, in fact, start ruling over us over a point of time. But I think that's the same discourse a lot of us had when, I remember 20, 25 years ago, when the Indian railway system started issuing computer-based tickets. There was this huge furor in the country saying, what will happen to all those jobs of people who sit and provide tickets to you sitting at the ticket counters. 25 years on, I think our lives have become a little bit more better because of that. The same thing happened when we talked about televisions coming in from a different perspective. It was all about that, you know, all of us will spend our time watching television. We won't study, we'll fail in school, etc., etc., etc. Also, or we'll go blind. Well, I don't know how many years television has been in existence. In India, definitely it's been around for around 35 odd years. We're not all blind, and we're still doing pretty well for ourselves. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that there is a perception that AI can take over our lives. But is it but the fundamentals that we need to understand, it's not the technology that will kill us. It is what we make of the technology that can kill us or make us. And that's where regulations come into play. And I'll touch upon that in a little while. But what is the promise of intelligent technology? And this is where I'd like to actually spend some time. We've heard of examples of how AI can, you know, change education, healthcare, etc. Let me give you some concrete examples of some things that we're doing here in India. So we're working along with ICRISAT to examine the ability of bringing artificial intelligence and data mining to agriculture, right? And what they've done over the last few years is they have studied across a certain swath of farmers in a particular state of Andhra Pradesh. And they've looked at soil conditions, they've looked at weather conditions, and they've actually gone and told those farmers, individual farmers, when to sow seeds and when to harvest them. The result has been that those farmers have actually returned 30% more produce. Another project that we've done with LV Prasad, which is an eye institute, they started by studying refractive blindness, or the possibility of refractive blindness in individuals. So they used a whole lot of data of the past, deduped that, made it anonymous, studied that, created algorithms, and based on that, they started studying future patients. And again, it was used like another tool for the doctors, for the eye surgeons. And based on that tool, doctors were actually able to predict that in 4 years' time or in 5 years' time, that individual or that child may actually go blind because of this particular issue. Another example, in a few schools in Punjab, actually with the Education Department of Punjab and Haryana, what they're doing is they're using data of the schools to study based on children dropouts, and they are predicting which children will drop out of school. How powerful is that? If because of artificial intelligence, the proper use of data mining, I can predict the possibilities of children dropping out of school, I can actually make an intervention before they drop out of school. I can actually make an intervention before a person goes blind. I can actually make an intervention with a mother in a very far-off village who is possibly pregnant and who is showing certain signs of having a baby who may be having a certain disability. That's the power of artificial intelligence. The power of artificial intelligence or any technology is to bring back or enable people to do what they're doing in a much better fashion. And the point is, do we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because we are frightened of it? And I don't think so we should do that. Let me show you an example of of something which has really happened. And if I can make this to work. Can I have the sound, please? Oops, sorry, just a second. I do that?
I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a...
Can you do that? Some problem in your...
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
So that's the power of artificial intelligence, enabling people to do much more. And if we want to leverage that, then we definitely need to see how do we design AI to amplify that human ingenuity. And that's where we come to the policies. And two fundamental principles, okay, I didn't do anything. Two fundamental principles that we need to follow is design AI to amplify human ingenuity to do good and ensure no harm. That's like anything else. That's like when you create fire. That's like when you create the regular computer. That's when you create a knife. It's for the good that it can add to the human life and not for the bad. Humans, and here's where we sort of, Satya, who actually drives this in Microsoft, talks about something called human-centered AI. AI must be designed to assist humanity. It should be transparent. I should know what's happening to the data that I have, what I'm giving. It should maximize efficiency without the ability of destroying the dignity of the people. It should be designed for privacy. And of course, algorithmic accountability. We've heard of stories where, artificial intelligence tools have actually created situations where they have been a little disrespectful, or they have been biased towards certain races. We as humans need to create AI in such fashion that we have the ability to change that. We shouldn't let it run riot. The value that we all as people need to bring to this: empathy, education, creativity, and judgment and accountability. So when we create policies, when we create AI, we need to make sure that we fill this, we have these 4 cornerstones involved, which is empathy, education of people, build creativity, and definitely the judgment and accountability so that somebody can be held responsible. So when we look at designing it, it needs to earn trust, safety. No technology will be used if it does not earn trust. And what are those key areas that you need to build in to have that trust? It needs to be safe. It needs to ensure fairness. It needs to be transparent. I, as an individual, or as a user, or as a consumer, need to know what's happening with the data that I'm giving or the data that I'm using. It needs to ensure privacy, and above all, it needs to be inclusive. Each and every race, each and every person with every type of ability should have the capability to use technology. We should not discriminate. So when I look at policy conditions, when we shape AI development, or when we as the government, civil society, lawyers, private sector get together, we need to focus on AI being human-centered. We need to have these multi-stakeholder dialogues, because technology today is going to change everything. Every individual, it's going to touch every individual, every organization, every process that we know. We need to ensure that it's broadly deployed, and we need to ensure that it continues innovation. I think Tabrez talked about research. There needs to be a lot of research around it. Because until and unless we do the research, we will not know the ills of AI, we will not know the goods of AI. And we need to have modernized regulation. And I'll take a leaf out of a very famous person. I don't know how many of you have heard of him, but I heard a lot of us talked about education here, right? So Sir Ken Robinson is a world-famous educationist based in the UK. And he talks a lot about education. And he says we can't educate our children today in the ways of yesterday for the future of tomorrow, which is exactly what is happening as far as education is concerned, globally, and especially in India. We are still teaching our children rote memorization when there is no need for that. What we need our children to learn is not what and how. It's probably move to the what ifs and what next, because that's what AI is going to do. So if I, as a student, don't know what next, I can't answer what if or what next, I will not be in a position to succeed in the future. Finally, I sort of coined an acronym called FICE. The broad principles we need to follow are forward-looking. We need to ensure innovation. Oh, man. Okay, anyway, that's my last slide. So, we need to ensure innovation. We need to have the consumer or the customer at the center of it so that there is no harm for that person. And we need to ensure an ecosystem development, which means everyone democratized AI so that everybody can partake of this development and actually make use of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Good to hear from Microsoft, one of the leading tech companies and leading into AI space. I'm very hopeful that AI, though it has potential to be having a lot of negativity around it, but so was nuclear technology when it was invented. So was biotechnology also when it was invented, okay? And we had things like NTP or different mechanism to control weapon of mass destruction. So same way we will have here, and concern is really serious because there are invention in this space on autonomous weapon, for example, when the drone will fly, go and hit, and it could be a small drones giving injectables in human being in large number. So those autonomous weapon and those kind of thing is creating fear, but that can be regulated. So let's hear from Dr. Sarkar. Please, sir, we all look forward to hearing from you. Yes, sir, you can do it from here.
So thanks, Tabrez. Thanks for the opportunity and for inviting me. But after the very good introduction from both Kazim and Chadha, I don't think I have much left to talk about. I'll touch upon a few things from my personal experiences and the projects that I have done. So I'll just reiterate the point again what Mr. Chadha explained a lot, which is around AI as a tool for empowerment. So this is what we see in India, the narrative around AI, whenever we see it, is like AI is more like synonymous to job losses, which is what the narrative has become. So from one or two examples which I'm telling, say if you look at the population of India, and if you look at the number of doctors that we are producing today, we will never match up to enough doctors in rural areas, particularly because doctors don't want to go to rural areas, to have enough educated, highly skilled doctors in the rural areas. So where AI is like a technology can help in such cases. You can have a junior doctor or a nurse or a technician who is reasonably equipped enough to understand the medical terminology and stuff. That person has a handheld device or computer, keys in the symptoms of a patient, and then gets recommendation what an expert doctor would give. That person might not know about those things, but the expert doctor would give those recommendations. Now what this is doing is that this nurse is now working as an empowered nurse or like a smart doctor. So what this technology of AI is doing is that it is empowering the person. So at every step, what we should position and look at AI, it should be an empowering tool. Now it can lead to job loss. You are completely correct when you are looking at. Now let me take the same example. Suppose this nurse in question is very good in taking measurements of height, weight of babies and all, whatever the medical things required, but she is digitally completely illiterate. So she cannot enter them into an interface to communicate with the server or whatever, that app or whatever you're telling. In that case, it will be a threat to her job. So whenever when you hear about, when you heard Mr. Chadha and Kazim, also you see skilling is important. We have to learn new skills. There was once an age when there were only horse carts there. They are now completely replaced with cars. Now the people who are running horse carts, they became jobless, but they picked up new skills. So when we are talking about empowerment, these people will be empowered. They are very good in their day jobs. The nurse is very good in her job of what she needs to know and understand from the medical domain. She needs that little bit of digital literacy that will help her to interact with the system. And this example that I'm talking about is not new to the medical domain. When you go to any bank for a loan, the person whom you are interacting with, the bank manager or the loan disbursing officer, takes in your details, how much you earn, what is your age, and all your socio-economic parameters, puts them in the system, and then gets a risk score based on your profile. Based on that, he decides whether to kick you out or to give you a loan, and then at what interest rate, a favorable rate or not, or if you have a high risk, around a non-favorable rate. So those are things that happens in the banking domain. The analytics, the AI, as we talk about it, they are happening at the back end. This person only has the interface to interact in real time with the citizen, whoever, and serving them. That person, that bank manager did not understand all the maths and all the algorithms that goes beyond it. The bank manager only needs to use this tool that is empowering him to make informed decisions. That is what is there. It is a powerful tool for empowering people doing their current job. That is how AI should be positioned into. There is little bit of skilling, which I assume the individual in question, when they see there is a bigger opportunity, even when Mr. Chadha talked about, they have done excellent work. Again, picking up on their example, they have done excellent work in Andhra Pradesh, where they are sending SMS to the farmers about what time to sow your crops. And based on the recommendations that they are given, when the farmers followed those recommendations, even though they were not very eager to follow the recommendations, they didn't trust it. When they followed it, they got about 30 to 40% more yield as they normally get. Now, this person, if he is illiterate and cannot even read SMS messages, these were in their local language, and taking all your example because I know it very well, this were all in local language. Even if the farmer is illiterate, then that person will not get the competitive example what AI is giving them. But if the person has a normal literacy level, can read the SMS, he is empowered farmer in today's date. So AI has to be seen as an empowerment tool, and not as a tool that will take your job away. Now, I think once that context is set, I will go to the next point about data. AI runs on huge volumes of data, and you need to have access to huge volumes of data. So there are two models in which we can work on. In India, the narrative that I see in the community in open is that all data should be made public, either in anonymized form or non-anonymized form, for public good. It's good to say, but a lot of privacy issues that is around it, and I don't think that's going to happen. Even if it happens by someone taking such a decision, it will be a disaster. So let me take examples of 2-3 projects where I personally worked. I have worked with transaction level data of customers for State Bank of India. I had worked with call data records for Airtel. This was when I was an empowered person who was supposed to be delivering on these projects, and as a part of that, in a sensitized environment, in their office locations of these two companies that I'm talking about, I had access to the data without the personal names. I had personal identifiers, but I didn't have personal names, so I would not know anything. Then I did the analytics. I have been an analytics professional for the last 16, 17 years, so that's what I do, AI and analytics. And I have delivered those projects, delivered the insights, so that they can use those insights for doing the next intelligent processing or intelligent targeting, whatever is the case. That's one model where you can work in collaboration with the authorized user. And there, I'll come to some other models there on that one. On the other end is that you have huge amounts of data with, say, companies like Facebook and Google. You have to go through the process of not sharing the raw data, but you derive insights from the data, and then sharing the insights. This is a term that our political class or bureaucracy understands very well, but sharing insights, when you're talking of from data to extracting insights, you need data scientists to do that. Otherwise, they'll be just doing aggregates, which might not be enough to give you the insights which are relevant. If you take the simple examples, like there was dengue happening all over Delhi. There were some people in certain pockets who are related to government, some think tank. They were trying to do a dengue hotspot map of Delhi, which areas is happening more, which areas. They didn't have enough geotag data, because whatever people are sharing numbers which are aggregate and is not geotagged enough. I have worked in Singapore myself with Singapore government, where if there are flus happening, there were data which was geotagged. Geotag means you know the latitude and longitude, but not exact home location, like which doctor or facility they visited or the locality where they are coming from. So the individual privacy is captured. And then you can take a heat map, and we could do that, and we could relate it to conditions in those localities which might be causing that flu or causing that incident. So these things can be done, but then it has to be taken up at a case-by-case basis. Like if you are sharing agriculture data, the type of granularity is done is different. For the healthcare data, for the particular purpose of the project, this has to be defined. So one blanket statement telling that this can work for all is very difficult, and it might not work. I'll tell you another example, because these are things which Singapore government has done quite a lot. So I worked with them, so I know. They have like 5-6 main hospitals or healthcare centers. And now they want to share data between them without breaching the privacy of the citizens, which is there. So there are techniques available where you do clustering of the data and do some modeling of the data based on data analytics through some algorithms, and then you share the parameters of these algorithms. Instead of sharing aggregate numbers, you share the parameters of the algorithm. Say a simple thing for everyone to understand. Say we are fitting a logistic regression model or a linear regression model. You share the parameters of the regression model for each group so that you can understand a bit more about the distribution of each of these groups. And then the actual examples we are talking about are a bit more complex, but this is just to give a sense to what I'm talking about. You share a bit more than the actual aggregate so that they can do meaningful analysis also at a higher level of this data. Now, when we hear a lot about sharing data which will be a platform for open innovation and open growth of AI. Even if you see in the healthcare domain, Stanford has the health data bank. That's the world's best data bank of open healthcare database. And if you just Google, you will find it as the first link. If you look into data, they are all hospital operational data. How many hours your operation theater is used, how many hours your certain staff is used, how many hours, without the personal details, how many hours, these are all operational data about healthcare facilities. There is very little data which is patient related, because this is really confidential data. If you are talking about Stanford University and like the leading research organization, they are not sharing data because they are well aware of the privacy laws. We in India definitely shouldn't be doing it, is my comment. We should never be sharing personal data openly, even by doing anonymization, because anonymization has a lot of flaws in it. And even with even if you do fair amount of anonymization, you can find someone intelligent enough to break it and trace which are the people who are doing it. But telling that, there are a lot of success stories that are happening in India even. You have to do a collaborative research. Say AIMS, which is in Delhi, might tie up with an education institution or a research firm. And then within that, the authorized people have access to that data within the AIMS facility, and they do the analytics and come up with the insights out of them. A very recent example that has recently happened from a very close friend of mine, in IIT Kharagpur, they have got access to some breast cancer X-ray data, and they have detected automated techniques based on that to do that. It's more in the image processing arena. So having told that, this is what the landscape is globally and in India. We have to be very informed, and when such decisions have been made, I think a community of data professionals and data scientists should definitely be consulted when taking the decision, and it has to be more case-by-case basis. Now coming to what the government is doing on that front. There are a lot of open data, like say infrastructure-related data, where there is not much personal data being used, say infrastructure, even say road light, what time the road lights are going on, going off. Even those sort of infrastructure data where there is no personal data being used. So we are NITI Aayog developing a national data analytics platform, which will be a warehouse of storing all data from ministries. We are starting the central ministries, and later it can go to the states. So we'll have a mechanism to store first the metadata type of data, and then store this data, because then that will form as a platform for doing AI or any other analysis on top of it. That's number one. Now there are 2-3 initiatives on AI particularly that's happening in the government.
I'm sorry to be an intruder in this discussion. I think we are a little late. And so we can, I will ask the Sujit to come on the stage, and I'm sorry. Yeah. You have a 30 seconds.
Sure. So in government, we have an AI task force formed by Department of Industrial Promotion and Policy, which is looking into the policy aspects particularly. We at NITI Aayog are looking into three particular areas like education, healthcare, and agriculture, and coming up with use cases, how are the challenges in the Indian context, so that we can frame better rules according to that. I think in the interest of...
I think you've done.
So
It's a time present
hold
a
on,
moment.
Hold on, Kaviraj. So I promised everybody that we will have question, but due to the paucity of time, I will request all the panelists to be available here and answer question. I'm sure there will be questions.
Till late evening, they are here. You can interact. So give a moment to. Thanks for wonderful panel discussion. Mr. Sujit, can you stop playing the games?